This episode is much more political than ones in the past. We are not experts. We have our own opinions. If you would like to learn more about subjects that we are talking about, please do your own research. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, humanity. How are you, Conrad?
I am pretty good.
Feeling good?
Yeah.
I saw you for the first time in a couple weeks,
Very
just
long
yesterday.
time.
Yeah.
Which was very nice.
It was nice to see you in person.
Yeah, it was. It was nice to see people in person.
Yes, I'm back in Portland now, and it is very nice to be back because I'm just glad that I'm interacting with humans more than I'm interacting with bears again. Because
You gotta love the
bears are nice and all, but they try to come into your home to eat your food, and people don't do that most of the time. So
yeah, the time.
Yeah. But anyways,
Yes,
there are
now have returned.
Yes, and the protests in Portland. I went down to the protests before I left for Vermont. But we're now on the 72nd day of protesting?
I think more than that. It's 70 something. I know that. 70.
Yeah. We're in the 70s. But Portland has been protesting every single night. If you, the listener, doesn't know the full story, Portland has been protesting every single night ever since the death of George Floyd. Yeah. Protesting Black Lives Matter and against systemic racism within the police system.
And police brutality.
Yes, police brutality.
And that
all the nasties within the policing system of America.
Funding the police and reallocating funds to other purposes. Other purposes.
Yeah. Which should have happened a long time ago. If you look at the American budget, we spend an obscene amount
on the military and our paramilitary police force.
Yes. That should be going towards education, or at least distributed more intelligently based on the current needs of America.
Yes.
But it is a large issue that's affecting both of us and a lot of the people who are living in Portland right now, because it's not just regular protests. It's protests where the federal agents who were sent in by who have now left. Yes, which is
they left
a lot better,
I believe.
Yes. Yes, they did.
And the protests, after they were sent in, became much more violent. They were not violent before. They were not very violent. There were definitely some violent acts, but that is to be expected at large protests. But once the federal agents came in, they got much more escalated due to the federal agents escalating every single night to higher and higher degrees until they were kidnapping people off the street without identifying who they were into unmarked vans.
Yes, and that is, how do you put it? Not okay?
Insane.
At all, in any way whatsoever. There was tear gas used, and people were getting hurt every single night. Yeah,
tear gas is a war crime to use it during war, but you can use it on your own population just fine.
Yeah, apparently it's okay to occupy a city as long as it is your own city.
Yeah.
Which is what Donald Trump decided to do to make an example of other, and I quote, liberal-run cities in America. That's a very odd situation to be in, because I wasn't here in Portland for the majority of the occupation, let's call it. Can we call it that? I think it's fair to call it an occupation.
Yeah.
I was there in the beginning when they first started throwing tear gas, and it was maybe one, and people were like, oh my God, how dare you throw tear gas? And once I left,
the police at the beginning were throwing tear gas, and using tear gas and rubber bullets and pepper bullets and
yes,
all the non-lethal ways that the police use. But then the governor of Oregon,
that would be Kate Brown. Yes, Kate Brown
said not to use tear gas anymore. So then, or signed some bill. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure she said not to use tear gas. So then the police weren't using tear gas after that. And then the feds came in without permission from either the mayor or governor and started using tear gas and rubber bullets and pepper bullets and
made things worse.
Yeah. Flashbangs.
Ted Wheeler, that is the mayor of Portland.
Yes, Ted Wheeler.
I just looked it up.
Fuck Ted Wheeler. He is also the police chief.
Yeah. Which is an odd situation to
It is
be
odd
in.
that he is the mayor and which I don't know why that is, but for some reason
I feel like that you shouldn't be able to have two jobs. Like, I understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it is two jobs or if like it's not the police chief. It's above the police chief. It's the commissioner. It's the police commissioner. He's the police commissioner. And I don't know if being the mayor automatically makes you the commissioner in Oregon. It might, or if he just holds both offices.
Okay, but I guess it's sort of like how the president of the United States is also commander-in-chief of the military. But I feel like with a city, that can be really dangerous, especially when the city is protesting against the policing system and the mayor runs that system to a very high degree. And Kate Brown was very diligent on saying, hey, we don't want the federal agents here. And the federal agents generally ignored her until eventually she signed a agreement with Mike Pence, I believe, to extract them and have them pull out. And they did that last week, which is nice that they left, but terrible that they were here. Like, going down to Portland right now, there is tear gas canisters everywhere and marks of pepper spray. Like, those are not de-escalation tactics. I feel like that is problems. One of the many problems in the policing system right now is de-escalation tactics are not oftentimes the priority in a situation that could escalate to violence. Yeah, it's a bad training. I don't know how to put it. It's bad training, first of all, and it's disrespectful to people. Like, you as the police should be there to protect people. That's what you should be. Now, America did not build the policing system correctly from the ground up. Initially, it was more to protect people's property and all this other things. But focusing on now, police should adapt to the new society that we live in. Police should change the way that they function and should be filtered. Like, it's fairly easy to become a cop in America today.
You just need a bachelor's degree and only like a month or two of training before.
And I'm pretty sure that's only a few states that you have to have a bachelor's degree. I know that Oregon does that, but I don't know about other states. But consider the fire department. No one's upset at the fire department because the fire department is doing their job correctly and not endangering people.
Except when they show up to a car crash that's not very bad and end up cutting the roof off of someone's car.
That is there are oftentimes situations, but
they like using their big toys, which I guess is a good example of why police should have so much more training, because their toys are guns and kill people.
If I was a fireman,
I want to get out the giant metal cutters that can just cut a roof off a car. Like,
any excuse I can get to break open a door with the most complex machinery possible, I'm absolutely gonna take.
Oh yeah,
But firemen also are really good at not using it when it's not needed. They're not showing up to a car crash and taking out their hose and drowning the person. And they're also not doing it based on the color of their skin. Like, that's not...
Yeah.
There's never been a fireman who has walked into a building and been like, white guy, black guy, gotta go the white guy. Like, that's not... But that's essentially what's going on in the policing system right now. Yeah. It's terrible.
It's always been happening. It's just people are actually speaking up about it now. And, like, their phones just have allowed, and social media have just allowed people to see what is happening.
Mm-hmm. And that's... I feel like when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement, it is an extremely powerful movement that should... What it is fighting for is amazing, and I fully support it in every way possible.
It's a very powerful movement.
It's a very powerful movement. It
because it matters so much to so many people.
And it's ridiculous to think that if you really put yourself in that perspective, if you are born with a color skin too dark, the system of almost every system fights against you. That is ridiculous. That is not a modern day society. That's not where we should be right now. We should have moved past that a long time ago, because definitely, we don't discriminate people based on the color of their hair, do we? Or the color of their eyes. All of those factors are practically the same. It's a genetic pigment.
Brown eyes.
Yeah. But it's a genetic pigmentation. Why should that matter?
It's caused by the same reason as why people have blue eyes or green eyes versus brown eyes. It's just the amount of melanin that's in their eyes.
Precisely.
Blue and green eyes. Blue eyes have a very little. Green eyes have almost none.
Yeah.
And brown eyes have a lot. So that would also explain why people who have darker skin have more melanin.
Yes.
It's just that. There's
that doesn't make
different
them
about them
lesser than us. That doesn't make them have thicker skin or not feel pain, which are some of the things that were spread to say that slavery was okay back during the before the Civil War. That is ridiculous.
And they count as 1/5.
Yeah, that the part of the... What is it? The Constitution? Yeah, that says that someone of darker skin counts as 1/5 of a white person. What is wrong with your head, with your brain, to think that that's okay? It's just...
It doesn't make sense, and it's just about power. Everything comes down to power.
Yes, it does. And there are, big, strong white boys who don't like the idea of people of skin having the same power and rights that they do, being treated equally. And
they want to, and politicians just use minorities and immigrants and others as a scapegoat for reasons or for problems that they themselves are the
causes of,
responsible for.
Yeah. And oftentimes when you talk about that stuff, there's a specific party that you look towards, based on what our party is. But the fact is that is very much on both parties, Democratic, Republican.
It's definitely both parties.
Absolutely. And I was talking to you about my problems with the Democratic Party and the two-party system.
If you can't tell already, we are much more liberal, or progressive is another word for it. We are not. I would not say I am a Democrat, because I do not agree with mainstream Democrats because of many reasons. But
legally, I have no party, I'm pretty sure.
You're going to be able to vote in this next election.
Yes, I am.
Because everyone should be able to vote, no matter where they live, how much money they have, or anything. And the Republican Party is very good at making obstacles for people, whether it be reducing the number of polling locations, especially at minority areas, or making sure that voting day isn't a national holiday or voter ID laws.
Yes. And this is not political bias. It is a fact that statistically, when more people vote throughout an entire state, the outcome is oftentimes more left-leaning.
Yes, but that is not because there are more people. I guess it technically is because there are more people. Because there are more people in cities that are voting.
Yes.
And when you live in a city, you always tend, or I guess not always, but you mainly tend to become more left-leaning or more democratic just because there are more people and more ideas around you that you can hear. You're not in a small town where there's only 500 people at most, who is just a giant echo chamber. In a city, you meet much more people.
Yes, it's the same situation of during the Enlightenment period when people would get together more due to the invention of coffee and coffee houses, where people would get together and discuss.
And not just drink.
Yes, that changed society from being run by the church to run by a scientific explosion. Because more ideas get transferred and you see the effects of your political choices more. When you live in the middle of nowhere, you aren't going to see systemic racism as much because the density of people
is much
less. Yeah. There are problems with living in a city. There always are politically.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot harder to manage. And so there are a lot of things you don't like about living in a city. But
not just cities, but
yes,
redlining is a very big problem in, I would say, all cities.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Even Portland, which is definitely a more liberal city. And I mean, which kind of makes sense because Oregon originally was a white state.
Yes.
Very racist and the only reason that it is a blue state at all is because of Portland and Salem and Eugene.
Yes, it's the same
and like Corvallis.
Situation with
But if you
Illinois.
go anywhere outside of the city, it's
red.
Hicktown. It's very red. Very, 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 very red.
If you look at any political map of
might even turn purple this election cycle because the cities have so much power because there's so many more people just in the city compared to
because Austin is a powerhouse and Dallas when it comes to liberal opinions to the point where Texas, oftentimes my father's side of the family is from Texas. They essentially disown Austin as a part of Texas, which I find as hilarious. But also Illinois has the same situation with Chicago, where they want Chicago to become its own city-state because it has a lot of power over the rest of the state, which I totally understand. If a majority of the area of the population has an opinion, but one small area with a high amount of people have a different political opinion and control the political choosing of your state, that could be extremely frustrating.
I wouldn't like that if I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you have the wrong opinion.
Your opinion is okay unless it's wrong. And that's essentially American society right now. This is my problem with the two-party system because
we have a two-party system because of our election, how we vote.
Yes,
because
the electoral college.
No, it's not the electoral college. It's style of voting that we have, which is first past the post.
That's what I meant. Not
whoever reaches this point first wins. It doesn't really matter how much of the population agrees because like in our last election, you could see more than 50% didn't want Donald Trump, and yet Donald Trump won.
Popular vote.
Yes, that technically is because of the electoral college. It's because we have first past the post, and that is also why we have technically a two-party system. The voting that we should do is ranked choice voting, which is when you have multiple candidates and you rank them from say there's 5 candidates, you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on who you want most and who you want least. And if you don't want to mark out all 5, you can just do who you want most. And then once counting comes, all the counts, everyone is counted. Whoever has the least amount, say number 5 loses, gets the least amount of votes. Then all of his voters are redistributed to the other candidates, the other 4, on people's second choices. And if you didn't write in a second choice, then your vote is just out.
Yes.
And then if there still isn't a clear winner, someone with, let's say, like
at 48%. Yeah.
Yeah, if there's still, then you go to the third.
Yes.
The
and
next
you do that
lowest.
until it arrives at a candidate who passes 50%.
Who passes the whatever the set amount is that you have to pass, whether it be 50% or 60% or 30%, whatever it is.
And that system is a lot better because it allows third parties to grow, and
it allows more than just 2 parties.
Yes. And if we allowed that system, I guarantee you the Democratic Party would absolutely split in 2, because there is a very clear.
So would the Republican Party, I think.
Absolutely.
I think it would split with traditional right-wing, right-wingers,
I believe,
and then also white nationalists.
Yes. I believe that if we did ranked choice voting, it would come down to by name, Democratic Party would become a middle ground between the Progressive Socialist Party that you and I prefer to identify with, and the more right-ish Republican Party. And the Democratic Party would be a place where more centered Republicans would move to, and then you would have a white nationalist, more extremist, far right, but also far left party that would form together. And we would have a system where everyone being political, like talking about politics, wouldn't be as bad, because politics would turn into a spectrum rather than a one or another. Because there are so many political opinions out there.
Right now, why first past the poll voting turns into a 2-party system is because if there's a third candidate and it's like people are just going to say, oh, you're just throwing your vote away by voting for that candidate because these 2 parties are the only ones that actually have a chance. But there's not a chance for more than someone in those 2 parties.
You should be able to vote for whoever represents you the best.
Not good.
Yes. And there's an amazing video by a YouTuber that we both adore. CPG Gray.
CGP.
Yes.
There's actually multiple videos about this.
Yes. We will leave a link to his ranked choice voting in the description below if you want to know more about it. It is an absolutely amazing video. He does a lot better at explaining it.
It's a short video that goes in very
great detail. Depth. Yes. The policing system. I am I draw a hard line at cops deserve the wall. If you are a cop, then no matter what, you are a bad human. You deserve the wall. You deserve to die. That's a little ridiculous to me.
Cops are the people who are police officers. They are not automatically a bad person. Yes. But when you put on the uniform and wear the badge, you are bad because you are policing bad laws.
Yes, you are the
racist and not good.
The system makes you.
People say, "Oh, that's childish," because yes, there are always going to be laws that you would disagree with, but it's like no, they are policing laws that are racist, which just makes what they are doing.
There's a difference between political opinions that are different and political opinions that hurt people, and like that is my line. Even if it's a liberal or a conservative view, if it hurts other people based on a group that they are in, a generalization, I dislike it. I dislike
the argument to why cops are bad people is because you choose to become a
and
cop.
so you are a bad
But it's
person.
like that makes you a bad person. But the thing is it's being a police officer. A lot of people see that as like a prestigious thing. Is I'm serving.
Yes.
I'm protecting
And trying to do good.
community.
And that's not a factor that we can dismiss.
Quantify.
We can't dismiss the fact that some cops might be joining the system and just like trying to do good.
Reason, but by wearing the badge, that it's not them personally, it's the uniform that is bad.
I fully agree that the policing system of America is bad. I do not agree that being a police officer makes you a bad person. And that's the same view I have with people who have political views on the right. I do believe that the right part of the political spectrum has a system that allows people to get hurt and makes it easier for people to get hurt, or doesn't help systems. And that might be because I'm liberal, and that might be exaggerate a little bit due to that fact. But when you have teenage boys driving around with Confederate flags on their cars, that's hurtful to some people, and
A lot
of people. Yeah. That I don't think that because you have right views, you're a bad person. A huge chunk of my family is Republican, but I don't think that they are bad people. But I do believe that if they are,
they have just been misinformed by our school system.
Yes, exactly.
Our school system, our history in the U.S. is very, very whitewashed.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
Has been rewritten.
Yeah.
Our history has been written.
Yeah. And
by like Daughters of the Confederacy. That's a very why the Civil War is a very good example of how our history has been rewritten, because so many people believe, and it's taught in so many places, that it was because of state rights, but that is not true.
Not at all.
It was for states' rights, in the sense that the southern states wanted slavery.
Yes. The southern states ran their entire economy based on slaves.
They wanted the states' rights if it was the correct state rights.
Yes, that allowed them to have slaves.
Decision.
Which, like, hey, it's not bad to fight for states' rights, but those states' rights are hurting people. And so therefore
and the southern states were like, hey, hey, federal government, make it illegal for states to make slavery illegal.
Yeah. Which is
but then
kind of ridiculous.
States' rights. So it's like no, it obviously was not about state rights. It was about slavery.
Yes, and then you have teenage boys driving around their town
who are taught that it was about
with the Confederate flag. And what I have such a problem with that, because the Confederate flag is...
Do you know how expensive slaves were? My family didn't own slaves.
That's ridiculous. Don't say that, first of all, because that, like, I have so many problems with people who don't think the Confederacy was bad, or don't see it, or just have the Confederate...
I don't blame people for not knowing that, because our school system does not teach people that.
Yes. It's also like the connection of...
Some textbooks even say, they
had a small argument.
Slaves liked being slaves.
Yeah, like, that's so ridiculous.
It's like, no, that is not.
Yeah,
true. I get not wanting to be like, I don't want to see the history because my ancestors fought in the Confederacy, and I don't want to admit that that was bad because they're my ancestors. I want them to be good, but my
you need to
ancestors
start
probably did a lot of
accepting
things.
what your past was like to move on to a better future.
Why you can't feel bad about what your ancestors did and why you have to admit what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at what the English did to India and all over the world, the U.S.
Yeah.
Native Americans. Look what the U.S. did to Native Americans and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember any names, but I don't know. Maybe I'll have to edit this out. But there was this talk show host who was taken into this show where, oh man, this is too vague, I think.
Anderson Cooper.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you. Anderson Cooper was on a show where he was basically shown, where they show people, famous people, what their past was like and what people, what their ancestors did, essentially. And the way Anderson Cooper took it was amazing.
Okay, let's explain what. So his ancestor first was killed by a slave, and then that's the
his
first
own
thing
slave.
But that's not what's said. He was killed by a slave, and then the next thing is he was a slave owner, and the guy who was like showing I don't remember
His name, yeah.
what show it was, or
I'll
who
leave a
like
link
the
to
guy
it.
was that
I'll leave a link to the
showing the information, and he was like, so do you think that he deserved it? And Anderson Cooper was like, yeah. And if you're doing something that your ancestors would be like, yeah, they deserve being murdered by a hoe.
Don't
A fucking tool. A hoe.
Yes. Yes. No, yeah, of course.
Beaten to death by that. If your ancestors are saying, or if your like future kids or grandkids are saying, yeah, they deserve
Don't
to be beaten
do
to
it.
death, then you should really think about what you're doing.
And that's another thing with like Confederate flag. There are just teenage boys flying Confederate, or even just guys flying Confederate flags on their cars. Do they they don't understand what the Confederacy was? And there's a part of it where there's American pride that they have, American pride associated with the Confederate flag. The Confederacy was our opponent. They were against us.
Yeah, and I mean the flag that they show as the Confederate flag
isn't even the actual Confederate flag.
Confederate flag, which is really funny.
Yeah, it's just like
it's very dumb.
This
and
was
just like,
this. Yeah.
Okay, why would you have pride? Or I guess the daughters of the Confederacy have done such a good job at rewriting the history that give people pride that their ancestors seceded from America and fought America. Like, just doesn't matter what it was about, but they fought against America.
Yeah.
They left America and fought against it. The daughters of the Confederacy have done such a good job that people are prideful of that, which is crazy. The argument about people by getting rid of Confederate statues will get rid of our history.
No.
Well, so you're saying that Germans don't know who Hitler is because there aren't any statues of him.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like I've never gone to a statue to learn history in my life.
No. Statues are not for history.
No, museums are for history. Textbooks are for history. And the history in those museums and textbooks is wrong too. So you've got this system where people believe these statues are good people. And then we take them down because they're not good people. Can we just... It makes me very upset.
What else did we, or what other topics do you want to talk
about? That's, I mean, we've gone through all of them. All of them kind of overlap. So, but talking about, I do want to discuss the Confederacy, and I think we should discuss statues as well, because I feel like that's a huge problem going on right now. Oh, actually, here's the thing I want to talk about. With concerning the statues and stuff, a great example is, did you hear about how the situation with Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill? I went to a really hippie middle school, as you know.
Well, I did hear that people were talking about
it
doing
was
that.
So Harriet Tubman was an amazing person. I will add a link.
Ran the Underground Railroad, or I guess, did you run it, or she was very much involved?
Oh yeah, very, very involved with. There's an amazing documentary, and I unfortunately haven't had the time to watch it since it came out on, I believe Netflix is where I'm seeing it. But it's my sister and my mother have both watched it, and they really like it. And we had a whole unit on the Underground Railroad, and Harriet Tubman was one of the main things we talked about at the hippie school that I went to. It is so there was a movement trying to get Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill because we need more representation on people who truly built America on our currency and in our statues and in our history, so they can be recognized more often. Because like Harriet Tubman helped turn the South into what it is today, and helped turn the Civil War into what it became. And it should have gotten passed, but it was a lot of, hey, can we please do this? And then the government would say, oh, you have to do this, this, and this. And then those things would get done. And then they'd come back and say, hey, how about now? We did all those things. And it'd say, okay, now you need to get petitions, and enough people would have to agree with it. And then enough people agreed with it, and they got the petitions. And once they had all of the things they needed to get the bill fully registered, they just shut it down. They said, oh, nope, not anymore. Sorry, we don't want to. This is a huge, huge, huge problem in America, is that we are not ready to change things for the better and to recognize our past. It's why our textbooks aren't accurate. It's why we still have fights over if Confederate generals should be honored in statues. It is the same reason why there are people who believe the Civil War was not over slavery. It's that we as a society have not yet moved on from our past, and we are too stubborn to accept that what we were, the bad things that our country was, are still around and built this country to what it is today.
How history is taught, it's like we're exponentially turning into a better place. Like, as history has gone on, we've gotten better. Like, our morals have improved, and all the things that were bad 50 years ago aren't a problem now, and we're just constantly getting better. That is not true in the slightest. Things that were around 50 years ago, still huge problems today. Equality, just in sexes and in race, is still a very big issue.
You can't tell me that the wage gap is not sexist. It is. But what's funny is that while our textbooks and our education systems have not adapted, what has adapted are the bad things. Racism has adapted and taken on a new form. No, it's not white people,
slavery,
talking about slavery, but it is police brutality. Sexism has adapted. It's not women can't vote anymore. It's women can't speak out about bad things that happen at work. It's
which, I mean, that is an improvement.
And we are moving forward. Yes.
I would say equality on the sexes is moving forward.
Yes. And the Me Too movement is amazing.
Is definitely
and
helping.
I'm so glad people
so many
are speaking out about this. But it is a large leap, but we have a long ways to go. And another problem is that there's a lot of belief that the way to make things equal is to bring others down. And this is a belief on all spectrum. There are a lot of white groups that believe that if the Black Lives Matter movement is set to pull down white people's rights and take away their rights. That is not true.
And if that is what you believe, you're not going to agree with it.
But we are taking away
it's about
is your
people up, not bringing people down.
And the only thing that the Black Lives Matter movement really wants to take from white people is their ignorance. They want white people to see systemic racism, to see the problems with society, to see their privilege, because we need to. Before we can move on and become a better society, we need to fix things here. Germany.
I can definitely admit that I was very naive at points.
Yes, but also we are very young.
And I would say,
yes,
I would say I'm less naive now. I would say I'm still naive about stuff, but I know more and I understand.
And there are many things that we should learn. But what's great is if you start learning that you might not always be right at a young age, when we grow up, we will question ourselves more. And it's seen in the millennial generation as well, that and Gen X. But older generations also were not taught those things at a younger age to question themselves
and
all
they
the
were
time.
Brought up on the whitewash history.
Yes. And that's why a lot of Proud Boy movements are run by older white men, whereas the Antifa is run by very young. Or not, sorry, not Antifa. There's some other movement. BLM. Yes, sorry, is run by.
I mean, I would say both have
like
very
a wide spectrum of people,
much more younger people.
Yes.
I should have mentioned this earlier when we were talking about Portland and all the protests. We'll put this video in the description, but All Gas No Brakes. I don't know if you've heard of the YouTube channel All Gas No Brakes. Pretty much this guy Andrew who lives in an RV and drives around the US going to like conventions and protests and events.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to the Portland protests and just videotaped it, and it really showed what truly happens there, much more so than like what you see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And because at least this is what it seems like, he doesn't really have an agenda on putting the footage out. Like, he doesn't want to show, oh, this is just a peaceful protest and this is just about.
He's not trying to demonize anyone, but he's also not trying to make light of anything. He's telling the truth.
Yeah. I mean, he does make jokes, and how he interviews people is very entertaining and funny, and he just asks like very simple questions to piss people off. And it's very, his videos are very entertaining. Yes. But this one was very, very good. And he doesn't always ask stupid questions to get reactions out of people. He does ask good questions of people who are actually.
He's a good but also entertaining interviewer. That's good.
Yeah. But his footage really showed that, it's not just peaceful. It's not just people there to support Black Lives Matter. It's a bunch of people, which as groups get bigger, there are going to be more people who aren't fully in it.
Great example of that.
I mean, I'm not saying just that, but just any movement of people. Of course. The bigger it is, the more that there's going to be outliers who don't agree and are going to go too far with certain things and are not going to be a good example.
Are not as connected to the movement.
We saw this in Bernie Sanders' campaign when they were attacking Bernie because of something that a couple people on Twitter did, which is tweeting snakes at Elizabeth Warren after and being like, oh, do you take responsibility for your supporters' actions? It's like, okay, well, Bernie has hundreds of thousands of people at least who support him. Probably, I would say millions of people who support him. Probably around 1 million. I would say he was much more supported than Biden.
Yes.
I am a Bernie bro, but they used the Democratic Party used Bernie's voters as a way to bring him down. Just because his movement was so big. Yeah, of course there's going to be people who disagree.
Yeah. But I believe that I want to go check out that YouTube channel because that sounds really amazing.
Yeah, they're really good.
Thank you for letting me know. And
he also went to the anti-lockdown, anti-masker protests and interviewed people, and you could see the difference in how the protesters were treated by the police officers. Just if you watch the two videos back to back, you can easily see the difference that the police force treated the protesters.
It's hard living in a society like this. It is hard. There are a lot of problems, and we need to start waking up. Wake up, America. You know, you're not perfect. But
America is far from perfect.
Now, Germany doesn't not talk about the Nazis. Germany teaches about the Nazis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's America teaches about the Revolutionary War, but maybe we should give that a look over too, as we've done we've done it before, but maybe we should look over that. We need to start looking at everything.
The correct
things. The Dakota Wars. This is a war that I learned about a little while ago that's completely wiped from everything. I'd never heard of
all the Native American genocide. That
Christopher Columbus was not a good person.
Well, no, I don't mean Christopher Columbus. I mean the U.S. government, all the genocide that the U.S. government did to Native Americans that is not talked about. Because, the Trail of Tears is talked about, but that's just a very, very small
portion for it.
Fraction.
This was not just one people that happened one time. This was over hundreds of years, thousands of cultures, hundreds of languages being completely wiped out. We have no idea. The Native Americans were not one people. They were a collection of millions of cultures all across the continent. Same thing with South America. They had completely different lives and completely different cultures. And because they weren't like the Europeans who migrate here and weren't like the Americans who migrated west, the genocide we committed.
Manifest Destiny.
The people of Manifest Destiny committed genocide, and that needs to be talked about.
No, there are so many genocide. I mean, I don't know that much.
The Dakota Wars was the largest mass hanging in the entire world history ever. I'm sorry, we talk about the French Revolution in America, but don't talk about the same thing. But here, what the hell? It's ridiculous. And also this is not just history; it's happening now. You remember what was it? The Black River Pipeline, Snake River Pipeline.
Yeah.
Where
I don't
it was going through native land, and people were protesting against it, and the tactics that they used on those people are the same ones they're using in Portland. It's an oppression of opinion to move aside for a government that is overruling and ignores the bad parts of its past and the bad parts of its current present. Portland should have been talked about more. Chicago should have been talked about more, because this thing isn't new. We act like it's this atrocity that America has just now done, but you and I know fully well this is not the first time the American government
definitely won't be the last.
Yeah, it's
which isn't fun to admit that we don't live in this great America country. The American dream isn't real.
There is I am in some ways proud to be an American. I am proud to be a part of America, but also I'm specifically proud of the America that
you want to be part of, not the
what I'm living in now,
which,
is
I mean,
I'm not proud of. If America was this great place,
I would, if America was what the Declaration of Independence really said, which is all men are created equal. When I say that, I mean all people are created equal. If that line was actually true in the US, then yeah, I would be proud of that, but that's not the case, and I'm not proud of it because of that.
People are saying all lives matter. Act like it.
Yes, all lives do matter, but because
but right now all lives are not being treated like they matter.
Equal.
White lives
Yeah.
are treated like they matter. Let's get everyone else on the same page, and then you can start saying all lives matter with pride.
All lives do matter, but all lives do not all lives don't matter equally at the moment.
Yes. All lives matter, but
all people matter.
We need to raise everyone else up to that level. The Black Lives Matter is not the opposite of all lives matter. They are the same, but Black Lives Matter is moving towards all lives matter with more momentum in the correct fashion.
That also does not mean I am pro-life. I am definitely not pro-life. Because that's not how anything works. Pro-choice.
Yes, Pete Buttigieg said this really well. There is no way that I, as someone who believes that who is pro-choice, and you, as someone who is pro-life, are going to agree on what the right choice is. But I do believe we should agree on who should make that choice, and that is the woman who it affects.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have to weigh our options. And this has been a very heavily political episode of our podcast. And hopefully next episode we'll try and make it a little less political, but I feel like that there were things said here that needed to be said.
What is currently happening is very important to talk about, and we are both very passionate about what is happening in our country because we care about our country and we want to be proud of it. But anyway, thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much. We will leave links to as much as we can that we talked about in the podcast in the description below. The things that we said here had to be said, but next episode, hopefully, we can go for a less political, more fun,
and a much lighter episode. But
thank you for listening.
I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening.
Share this with your friends or whoever. It really helps support us.
Like and subscribe, and see you next time.